Hello everybody and welcome to another Unreal Engine tutorial. So in this one I'm going to show you how to make some basic AI that can walk around and chase the player as well. So let's get into it. So firstly for this tutorial I am using some characters, or a character from a particular pack. So if you want to follow along with what I'm doing exactly, you'll need to first of all go to the Unreal Marketplace. This is free by the way, so you don't need to worry about it. So you go to the free section, you click on the free tab, and it's currently on page 2 of the free section, so I'm just going to go to page 2, and it's this one here, the City of Brass Enemies. Okay, so if you want to get that pack and download it, once you've got it, you should then be able to click on Add to Project, okay, and add it to whatever project you're doing this with. Once added to the project, you should then have a folder called City of Brass Enemies. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, I'm going to create a new folder for this character. So I'm going to just right click in a blank space, choose new folder. I'm just going to call it AI. Call it AI, we'll go into there. So there's several things that we are going to need for this. We are going to need an actual blueprint for the AI character themselves. We're also going to need to create an animation blueprint so that it can be animated, and a what we call a blend space as well. So yeah, and we're also going to need a navigation mesh for it to use. But let's start off with the character blueprint first. So I'm going to right click in a blank space and go to blueprint class, and I'm going to create a character blueprint. So choose character, and I'm going to call it AI underscore BP for blueprint. So AI BP. Open that up, and let's just dock it onto the top bar. Like that. Okay, so we've got our AI blueprint, which is basically just a character capsule with an arrow pointing you where to go. If you look on the left side here, you will see everything that's currently in this blueprint. We have the capsule, we have the arrow, but there's also a mesh component here, but the mesh component is currently blank. There's nothing assigned to it. So we're going to then click that drop down, and you should see, if you've imported the City of Brass assets, you should see them in here. I am going to, for this tutorial, I'm going to use the Corpse Basic model. So I'm going to click Corpse Basic, and you see we have this kind of skeletal looking character here. The obvious problem at the moment is, though, he's stood halfway through the capsule. So easiest way to fix this is over in the location coordinates here. In the Z axis, if you put about -90, that should drop him down to about the right level. The other thing I'm going to do also is just make the capsule, well, I'm going to shrink him down a little bit so he fits into the capsule better. So let's just scale him down a touch. There we go. Tiny bit bigger. Just so the top of his head is about level with the top of the capsule. There we go. Right. So that's got him in there. He currently doesn't have any animations though, so let's sort that out next. So I'm just going to hit compile and save on that, and I'm going to come back out into the main editor, and we need to create an animation blueprint. Now luckily with this City of Brass pack, there is already a load of animations we can use that work for this character, so let's use those. I'm going to right click in a blank space and create an animation blueprint. So go to animation and choose animation blueprint, click on that. And now this is going to ask you, first of all, what type of which skeleton basically are you wanting to create an animation blueprint for? So and by skeleton I don't mean the cause that character obviously looks like a skeleton. That's not what we're talking about here. We're on about the actual animation rig that's inside the character. This obviously uses the corpse skeleton, so I'm going to click on corpse skeleton, press OK, and I'm also going to call this AI underscore anim BP. Okay, and because we chose the corpse skeleton, it is now using the using that skeleton for the base. The other thing I'm going to use as well is the other thing we need is what's called a blend space. So I'm going to right click, going to go to animation, and we're going to use a blend space 1D, which means just like a single dimension basically. So blend space 1D, click on that, and again it's going to ask you which skeleton you want to use. So choose corpse skeleton, and we are going to call this AI underscore blend space. Okay, So let's set up the blend space first and explain what a blend space actually is. So let's open it up. I'm going to double click it. And in here, so you see the character in here is actually different to the one you were using, but that's fine because it's using the same skeleton underneath, so that's fine. Don't worry about the fact that they're wearing a different outfit. But yeah, blend space essentially allows the blending between multiple animations across using certain values and things. So a blend space 1D it basically means one-dimensional blend space, so it can go from one to another. So at the bottom here we have this graph that goes from 0 to 100. Okay, and you got this little green dot. The green dot is like a preview. Now obviously nothing happens yet because we haven't told it what animations we want. We're basically going to link this to the character's movement speed. So at the moment it won't do anything, but what we need to do is add in the animations we want. So at 0, if the character's movement speed is at 0, we want the character to basically just be idling. So if you search the assets over on the right hand side here, if you search for idle, you should see this one here called corpse passive alert. Sorry, not passive alert, passive idle. There's one above called corpse alert idle. Let's just use the passive one. So I'm going to get corpse passive idle, and I'm going to drag that in, click and drag it all the way over to this side and let go. So you now see these popped into an idling animation here. So when his movement speed is at 0, he'll be idling. Then we want to use a walking animation. So I'm going to search for walk, and okay, it's not one that's actually made for the skeleton, but it does work on it. So I'm going to use this one called Charger Passive Walk. I'm going to drag that in. I'm going to stick that on this side of the graph here. Okay, and now you'll see he's kind of slightly idling, but also slightly slowly walking. And that's because the preview here is in the middle. If I drag the preview right to one end, to the left side here, you can see he's idling. If I drag it all the way to the other end, he's doing his full walking animation. Now, as you can see, depending on where I am through it, depends how much it plays one animation or the other. So it blends between them, hence the name blend space. Okay, so this is just a one-dimensional blend space. Literally, you can just go from one side to the other. There are more advanced blend spaces where you can have multiple directions and all sorts of things like that, but we're not looking at that in this video. Okay, so that's the blend space basically set up there. We can just hit save, and we can close the blend space. So coming back into our main editor down here, we now have the blend space working, but we still need to set up the animation blueprint. So let's go into that first. Double click that to open it. And in an animation blueprint, you'll have this output pose. And this is basically, after it's done all the code, this is the final thing that gets read and basically determines what animation is going to be playing. But we're going to use a state machine to determine whether the character is essentially moving or not. So what you need to do is right click in a blank space just here and search for state machine. And you should see a node here called add new state machine. So click on that. And you can then hook up that state machine to the result there. All right. You can name the state machine as well if you wish up here. So I'm going to call this one, let's call it corpse state machine. There we go. Right, I'm going to then double click on the state machine to go into it. And what you have inside a state machine is basically an entry point, which is already there for you, and then you need to add in the rest. So what we're going to do here is drag off of entry, and we're going to add a new state. And this state is going to be called idle/walk. Okay, so this is going to be controlling the idle and walking animation. So we're going to, again, double click on idle walk to go into it. And this is where we need to tell it what to use. So we're going to use that blend space. And if you look over here on the right side, that AI blend space that we made is just here. So I'm going to click and drag that in and connect it up. The problem we have currently, though, however, is that it needs to know a value. So currently it's going to be permanently at 0, which means the character is just going to be constantly idle. Even if the actual character's capsule is moving around, it's not going to animate. It's just going to stay as like playing the idle over and over again. So we need to tell it how to get the speed. And to do that, we need to edit the event graph. So let's go over to the event graph tab up here. Okay, and we want to we're going to use both of these. So first of all, drag off of this try get pawn owner. We're going to drag off that, and we're going to search cast to AI BP. So we're going to cast to our AI character. And then off of that, we need to get the character's velocity. So if we do get velocity, basically it's how much they're moving. And then we also need to convert this return value here. We need to convert this into like a float variable so that we can actually have it read as a speed. So drag off of return value here, and if you do vector length, and you see that now converts it into a green float variable. I'm then going to promote this variable, so I'm going to right click and promote to variable, and I'm going to call this variable, so I'm going to name it up here, I'm going to call that speed, and I'm going to plug that into the speed variable. Okay, and compile that. So now you can see now I've compiled it, the character is now idling. If I go across to the idle walk state, what we need to do here is plug in speed, click and drag it across and plug it into none. So now it's going to use this, whatever the speed value is, as the value in the blend space. Okay, so now hit compile, and we can save that, and let's go back to the character. So in here now, if I click on the character's mesh, over on the right side, we have animation mode, which is set to use animation blueprint, which is what we want. We need to then set that, which blueprint it's going to read from here under this anim class. So click this drop down, and you should see AI anim BP just there. Click on that, and the character should pop into an idling pose. So that's that part done. So now we've got the movement set up. That's fine. However, it won't do anything if we actually put it into the level at this stage. So what we need to do now is add some other stuff in to get it to move. First of all, we want to make it actually give it some senses so that it can see. Because what we're going to have it do is be able to look around and see the player eventually. So let's do that now. So we're going to click Add Component. And if you search for sensing, you should see there's a node called Pawn Sensing. Add that on. And then you have to hit compile before you'll see any of the actual proper options for it. So click on compile, and you'll suddenly see all these different wires. These little wireframe displays come up, okay? And these represent different senses. So the blue and yellow ones are related to the hearing, and the green one is the vision. So currently, it's got a pretty wide cone of vision. So I'm going to reduce that down to maybe, let's do 45 degrees as such. So there we go. So that's narrowed it down. So if we look from above, look, it's got like this cone of vision. The peripheral vision angle is, that's how wide the cone is. And then the sight radius is basically how far they can see. So the higher, if I drag that up, look, you'll see the cone gets bigger, or drag it shorter. So that's basically their cone of vision. Okay, which is what we're going to be using for this tutorial. We're not going to be doing anything used based on the hearing, so we're going to leave those alone. But yeah, essentially the blue sphere is their main hearing threshold. So if a sound is played within this area, they'll hear it. Anyway, that's the sight bit set up. So again, just tap compile, make sure everything's all good there, and then we need to go into the event graph to actually set up some movement. So it now has the ability to see us and things like that, but we'll sort that out shortly. In here, what I'm going to do is remove these two nodes here. We're going to keep the begin play. We'll need that in a minute. So just delete those. And what I'm going to do here is search for a custom event. So I'm going to create a custom event. There it is, add custom event. And I'm going to call this, let's say, we'll call it patrol. So this AI character is basically just going to patrol around, like walk around, as it does. It's just going to walk around and find somewhere to go to, stop there, come back, etc. But we'll get to that in a moment. So patrol, and when that's activated, we want to have an AI move to. So this is an AI move to node, which basically will tell an AI object to go from from wherever it is to a certain destination. First thing we need to tell it to do is to make sure that it is going to be moving itself. So you see this top one here with this pawn input, that needs to be itself. So if you just type self and choose get a reference to self, there we go. because otherwise it's not going to, this node doesn't know what AI object is trying to move. So you have to tell it to move itself. And then we need a destination to go to. So the best way that we can get it to just go somewhere random is if we right click in a blank space here, and if you just search for the word navigable, there we go, you should get random point in navigable radius. Okay, so we're going to add that in. And what this node will do is from the origin, it will pick a point within a certain radius and set that as the location to go to. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the capture component from the character, drag it in, and get the world location of that. So get world location, and we're going to use that as the origin point. So it's basically going to pick from where the character is currently stood as the origin. And then we're going to set a radius value. Let's make it nice and big. So a radius value of about 5,000. So this is in centimeters, by the way. So it's going to pick a value in 5,000 centimeters. So quite a distance. And then make sure you plug random location into the destination plugin there. Okay. And then acceptance radius here, this is how close to that chosen point does it have to get before it's considered that it's successfully made it there. So in this case, it only has to get within 5 centimeters of that point to consider it a success. Okay. Then what do we want it to do once it's made it there? So on success, we are going to we're going to delay for 5 seconds. So delay duration 5. So we're going to get it to stand still for 5 seconds, and then we're going to trigger patrol again. So search for patrol, and that will trigger this event off and start the whole process again. So what should happen is it will pick somewhere to go. It will walk to that location. It will stand there for 5 seconds, and then it will start again and pick a new location to go to and repeat the process. As a little fail safe as well, I recommend if we plug in on fail into here as well. So if for whatever reason it can't get to the location it's picked, like if something gets in the way and blocks it and stuff, it will still stop for 5 seconds and then move on and pick another location. Because otherwise what you'll find is if it can't get to the location, it will just stand wherever it's stuck and it won't do anything else. So make sure you do that. Okay, so that's going to patrol. The only thing we need to do now is to actually get patrol to start playing. So that's why we kept the begin play here. So if you just drag off of that and do patrol. There we go. So when the game starts, it will trigger this patrol event to go. Okay, let's compile and save. And let's drag the character into the level. So let's get AI BP from here, put them in the level, and then hit play. Okay, so they're animated, but they're not walking around anywhere. So there is one thing that we did miss, and I deliberately didn't do it just to prove a point, because this happens all the time when I do AI with my students. They always say, "Oh, it's not moving. I don't know why," and it's because of this next step, which is we need a navigation mesh. So basically, this AI character, although it's got like a sight node and stuff, it doesn't actually see the environment. It's only looking for stuff like for like the player character or other AIs. It's not looking for anything else. It doesn't actually know what the environment looks like. It's essentially blind to the environment, so it's not going to move. However, if we search for a nav, if you just search for nav in the side here, you should see one here called nav mesh bounds volume. So I'm going to drag that in, okay, into the world, and you get this little wireframe box. If you press the P key for preview on the keyboard, you should get a green highlight. And this green highlight basically tells you where the AI character is allowed to walk. So currently it's only in that square there, which isn't enough. So let's make this box much bigger. I'm going to place this roughly in the center and just going to scale that up. So it's pretty much the size of the level, gives it a second to calculate. And you'll see anywhere where there's a box and stuff, look, that green bit gets interrupted. That's basically telling the AI that it cannot go there. Okay, which is really good. So anywhere that's green, the AI character is going to be able to go to. Okay, with probably the exception of the tops of these boxes, because it hasn't got any way to transition from there to there. If the AI could maybe jump or something, then yes, it could get up there, but at the moment it won't be able to do that. So we've got our nav mesh in, and now if I hit play, there we go. Okay, he's moving a bit quick as well, so we need to edit his movement speed because it doesn't match with his animation. He's doing quite a slow, casual walking animation, but his movement is way too fast. So yeah, let's just tweak that first. So go back to the AI BP. I'm going to click on character movement over here, and I'm going to go down to max walk speed. This is how quickly he's walking currently. So he's walking at 600. I'm going to turn this down to about 200 and compile and save and hit play again. There we go. That's much better. Now, this AI character is basically ignoring me at this point. It knows that I'm there, so it will stop when it walks into me. But it's not actually interacting in any other way. It's literally just casually picking a spot to walk to, walking to it, waiting for 5 seconds, and then moving on. Like so, okay? So let's set up the ability for it to actually see me and come after me. So let's do that. Okay, so that means going back into the AI BP, and we are going to add in a new event. I'm going to go custom event. Oh, no, sorry, not custom event. We actually have an event for this that we can use. Go click on pawn sensing over on the left, and down at the bottom you should see some green buttons, and one of them is called on see pawn. Click on that, and you'll get this node. Okay, so this is basically if it sees a particular pawn, and our player is one of those. So if we drag off of this and cast to, and you want to cast it to whatever your character is, whatever the player character is. Now in this case, I'm using the first person character, so that's the one I'm going to choose. So cast to first person character, and that's then going to check to say, okay, is what you've seen the player character? And if it is, it will fire off this and say, right, this is what you need to do if it's the player. We're going to add in a variable here called has seen player, which might come in handy later on. So let's do that and set it to true when it's seen the player, and then we'll tell it what to do. So in this case, we're going to get it to move towards the player. So we're going to do another AI move to. And again, we have to do a reference to self off of the pawn input. And then this time, instead of plugging in a destination, we're actually going to plug in target actor, which is going to be the character. So all we need to do is grab the blue output from here and plug it into target actor. Then we've got the acceptance radius. Now, the problem with this is it's never going to actually reach 5 centimeters from the character, because where it's actually going to try and get is the very center of your character's blueprint, which, like the AI, if I come back to the AI character, like this character, it's inside your player is a capsule. It's going to try and get to the very center of that capsule, right in the middle of it. But the capsule itself is way wider than 5 units, so it's probably about 50. So what we need to do on here for it to actually be able to successfully reach the player is put this acceptance radius up higher. I'm going to set mine to 60, just so it's definitely bigger than the player. Okay, and then what we're going to do is do on success. We could have it delay, so on success, delay. What we'll have it do for now is just going back to patrolling for this in this tutorial. So yeah, delay for 5 seconds again, and then go back to, we'll trigger patrol again, and it'll go back to patrolling. Oh yeah, we should also set has seen player back to off as well, just to make sure. There. Okay, I'm going to compile that, save it, and let's give that a little test. So hit play. Oh, see it coming straight for me. Look, and as I move around, he's turning. If I try and dodge past him, sometimes you can trick it. There we go. He's now lost me. Oh, he's spotted me again. Hide behind here. Yeah, he knows where I am. Okay, he's lost me again, and that's it. Now I'm out of sight. So now he should patrol. If I keep my distance, he should patrol until he spots me again. Yeah, so he's going about his patrol now, just randomly walking around. And then if I get into his line of sight, there we go. He's turned back towards me again. He's chasing me. So when he gets to me, he's going to go, yeah, and he spotted me again. He kind of goes back to patrolling for a second like that. There we go. But yeah, that's it. So that's just a very, very basic NPC AI that can just wander around. So that, could be useful for just having like random villagers or something like that walking around in a scene. But yeah, I will be doing more advanced tutorials on this aspect. So having them, for example, being able to actually attack the player and have the player be able to fight back, give them health and stuff like that. So yeah, we will be doing some more advanced ones, but for now, that's all I wanted to show you. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed this, and I hope you've learned something from it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.